So, welcome back. I know, what a big shocker. I know, you guys are probably so surprised. I'm actually coming back? I'm actually finishing a series? I know, crazy, right? And this time, I don't have a glitchy Pokemon game that will keep me distracted. That will make me have to, grind for hours and hours. And, to anyone from Avalanche Gaming who's concerned about, what's happening with that, I am, with a heavy heart, I decree that series is no longer coming forward. Sorry, I'm not completing the game. I know. I'm not going to get into the whole nitty-gritty, but basically the thing that I used to play the game is not supported anymore. So, rip. The stupid emulator fucking crashed and I'm too broke to buy another. Also, in other news, I got a cool thing. I got a bullet in my shin from the police. No one told me Vancouver's police would be so damn aggressive. But hey, pulled it out, no problem. Everything's going nice. Shit. But yeah, so what we're gonna do is basically, come back. We're gonna do part 3 of Breaking Point, and hopefully all of it. That is the hope. And I am going to give a slight teaser that I am starting a new series. I will finish. I promise. I will finish Breaking Point before, not the story, but at least the audiobook. To what we have to up to part 7, because part 8 is still not done, and I have no idea where I'm going to take the story right now. So I'm kind of in a writer's block right now, but I could bring it. I can bring it home hopefully soon. But yeah, the new series after Breaking Point will be primarily for the more educational side, because I've been watching a lot of Milo Rossi, Minute Man, Professor Dave Explains, all of that stuff. Really snazzy creators. You should definitely check them out. I don't know if I'll link them in the description, but just go check them out, okay? If you're a fan of me, and if you know me from Dinopedia or Jurassic Park Wiki, you should definitely check them out, because they are very snazzy people, deep-rooted in science, and they fight, well, not literally fight, but they debate the people who spread lies and misinformation, which I take to heart. Yeah, you shouldn't fucking, intentionally lie to people. But anyway, the new series is going to be a kind of fossil journey, which is going to start with, my pet king. Or at least his species. We'll get to that. People who know me should know what that means. But, yeah. So, we're going to get into it soon. Time for Breaking Point. Alright, so let's get to it. So if you don't know what Breaking Point is, I highly recommend you should go to my Breaking Point playlist and watch the 3 videos out right now. This is part 3, okay? This is not the beginning. So, time for the black market. For a quick recap, after Fritz loses his daughter to 2 ravenous Allosaurus, his friend helps him seek revenge, chasing them across the western hemisphere, though some things don't go to plan. Between a black market turned dinosaur playland to the echoes of BioSyn trying to make a name for themselves once again, this blood-packed story is not for the faint of heart. The Black Market, 2027-06-09. I can see that, King. They're down there, the old man explained. And it's Bastleton to you, he added. Whatever, listen, we grab Ed, we get the hell out of Dodge, King explained. George shook his head. Where would I be if I just bitched out anytime it got rough? George asked. He noticed King was about to answer, but cut him off. I certainly wouldn't be the face of I certainly wouldn't be the new face of BioSyn, okay? I mean, Lewis Dodson goes missing after the fall of the BioSyn Valley, and who has to deal with the fall, and who has to deal with that and the fall of the Seven Rings prison complex? That's right, me, George groaned. It's been difficult to do anything, especially with our little operation went south in Blue Ridge, King, George explained. Howard, King corrected. King, no first names, George explained. So, what should we do after Regus gets back? Howard asked. Blow this place to hell, take any assets to our valley in Europe, George informed as the two walked off. Below the balcony, Wilson sat, hearing the whole thing. Game on, Wilson muttered. Well, Gabriel waved over. Wilson shushed him before walking over to where he was standing. Look, Gabriel pointed. Shipping containers? Will asked, looking at the two. Their focus was short-lived. A commotion behind them engulfed their mind. Next to one of the shipping containers, a man in khaki cargo vest and shorts lifted up some wire cutters and snipped the industrial chain being held behind a padlock. He tried to be stealthy, but Howard appeared in front of him. You're not a spy, Regus. Get this over with. Basselton's getting antsy, Howard explained. Shut up, Howard. TPW's crawling in this place. I know it, Ed explained. Basselton wants us to use surnames only, so it's King now, Howard informed. Howard King? I always knew your last name would be something stupid, Ed laughed, before taking off the padlock. A bellowing roar from the container caused Howard and Ed to jump back. Let's just get this shit over with, Ed sighed. Wilson looked in awe and curiosity as he watched the thing that distracted them. An irritator. A man in front of it was using a controller. Every time he jerked a joystick or pressed a button, the irritator did something. Gabriel looked on in fear and horror. They're controlling him, Gabriel muttered, choked up. Savages. Will shook his head, disgusted. The irritator tried to resist, but was forced to move around, eventually biting a sandbag and throwing it. It struck a man behind a corner, roasting compsognathus drumsticks and brachiosaurus sausages behind a grill. He groaned before getting up and starting an argument with the man controlling the irritator. Soon, the man pressed a button. Wilson and Gabriel heard a loud radio static as the irritator moved to roar at the chef. Ed and Howard tried to go to the next crate, but a small juvenile Carnotaurus approached them curiously. Ed grunted and kicked the juvenile away. Gabriel held his breath and tried to save it, but Wilson held him back. We're not DPW here, remember? Wilson explained. I raised a juvenile Carnotaurus from the time it was still its mother, Gabriel explained, pushing him away. That was like pupilless to me. I can't bear another minute here, Gabriel cried. Howard pushed Ed. What the hell was that? That was not protocol, Howard yelled. It was in the way. Plus, I hate baby dinosaurs, Ed explained. What kind of person hates baby dinosaurs? Howard shook his head. Listen, the plan is to take our assets that we recovered to BioSyn Valley, Howard explained, trying to erase the sight of Ed kicking the baby. Before he could think, DPW agents swarmed the entire market. Katie pointed her gun right at Daniel. As the man behind the grill and the one controlling the irritator were arguing, Gabriel and Wilson pulled out their guns on them, too. DPW, drop what you're doing now, Gabriel yelled. This was a sting! I fucking knew it! You pigs! Daniel snarled, spitting at Fritz. Where's Hectilius and Bruton? Fritz yelled. Fuck you! Daniel groaned. Down a level, Bruton leaped up the small step and roared at the bustling people. Bruton grabbed the Pterodactyl's cage and chucked it across the room, smashing it open. Bruton roared, searching for Hectilius. DPW tried to shoot tranks at the dinosaur, but the market inhabitants pulled out their own weapons and began a shootout. One Pterodactylus picked up the man controlling the irritator and lifted them up, dropping them into the fighting ring. When the man dropped and broke the controller, the irritator shook off the controls, snatching up the man behind the grill and shaking them limp, roaring at the others. Back with Katie, Fritz, and Jeremy, a Pterodactylus landed on the cage, denting it, but as it flew away to tackle a DPW officer, Bruton hit a support pillar, breaking it down towards them. Fritz, Jeremy, and Katie dived out of the way, but the other agents were crushed, and seemingly the Utah Raptor. Bruton suddenly smashed into the shipping container, releasing the second Allosaurus, Hectilius. Howard and Ed were running past the scrambling people, only to be cut off by Gabriel and Wilson. "Where are you off to?" Gabriel asked, flashing his DPW badge. Wilson turned around, flashing his jacket, reading Department of Prehistoric Wildlife, just like Jeremy's. "Better yet, where are you two off to? 'Cause I think it's for a dinosaur's stomach," Ed yelled, cutting the chains to the second shipping container, which they were standing in front of. The two special Sierradactylus landed on the container, roaring and slamming against the top. A roar was heard from inside before something massive ran out and headbutted Wilson away halfway across the market. Gabriel tucked and rolled into the fighting ring, watching the Rajasaurus roar upon its release. Fritz saw the Rajasaurus had scars on it, and the two Sierradactylus hopped onto its back. A sudden snap and snarl made Fritz turn back around, seeing the Utah raptor run by him to chase a once captive Othanilia. A man in possession of a juvenile Nazutoceratops tried to leave, but Jeremy cut them off. "Hey, halt! Release that dinosaur immediately!" Jeremy couldn't even finish before two Sierradactylus picked up the man and tried to fly away, but their weight meant he was too heavy. So they dropped him onto the grill, lighting him ablaze. As he tried to fight it, the irritator snatched him off and ate him. "What?" Jeremy blinked. Gabriel ran across the market to find Wilson. He was briefly distracted by Hectilius and Bruton roaring, but he shook it off. He did witness George, Howard, and Ed running out of the market. Soon he found Wilson. "You okay, mate?" Gabriel asked. Wilson briefly nodded before clutching his leg. "Man, who would have thought I'd get hit by a 3-ton Rajasaurus, sent halfway across the market, only to crash into a food vendor?" Wilson groaned. "Who thought bananas would be a working cushion?" Gabriel asked. "Not me, that's for sure," Wilson groaned, getting up. Fritz and Jeremy ran in, grabbing Wilson and Gabriel's hands and running. "God, easy!" Wilson groaned, still holding his leg. "No time!" Jeremy yelled as Hectilius snapped at them and began to chase. As the four ran out, a tail suddenly struck Fritz out of the way. "What was that?" Jeremy asked, trying to see past the sun's glare. The Rajasaurus stepped back, snapping at the irritator. "Wait a minute, I recognize that Rajasaurus," Wilson yelled, slightly limping. "Not the time!" Fritz yelled, watching Hectilius snap at the Rajasaurus, only for the irritator to charge at the Hectilius. Fucking hell. Hang on. "Red Brick von Buckminster, that's it!" Wilson snapped his fingers. He quickly ducked to dodge Red's tail as he bit into Hectilius' neck. Bruton tried to come out, but he was too large. He instead turned around and bit a man in the leg and lifted him up. Will watched the sight and suddenly had a flashback back to 2026. He witnessed Louis Lambert get picked up, ripped in half by the Appalachiosaurus. Gabriel knew that he was seeing... Gabriel... Fucking hell. I need... Who knows? Maybe I'm dyslexic. Anyway, Gabriel knew what he was seeing and tackled Wilson out of the way as Red bit the irritator's tail and dragged it back. It roared at Red, biting him by the neck and pushing him downward. As it tried to bite again, the two Sierradactyls swooped down, distracting it enough for Hectilius to headbutt the irritator's pelvis, knocking it off of its feet. Red lunged up and bit Hectilius by the neck, taking him off balance and pulling him down. Both the irritator and Red got up, leaving the two Sierradactylus to land on Red's back. Red lowered slightly to roar, allowing the two Sierradactylus to also screech. Hectilius then got up, roaring and snapping at both. Red roared, but the irritator lunged forward to bite Hectilius by the neck. Hectilius jerked his head, throwing the irritator off balance, using his momentum to bite Red by the neck and throw him into Hectilius. "Move before they crush us!" Gabriel yelled, pushing Jeremy away from the fight. The four ran off, witnessing Red grab the irritator by the neck and throw it against a DPW pickup truck. The four looked around before Fritz perked up. "Where's Katie?" he asked as Hectilius was slammed into the garage shutter. Jeremy, Gabriel, and Wilson exchanged various confused glances. Quick heads up, I am recording this at a way later date. Okay, I started the previous I started what you just heard February 6th, and I'm now recording this March 18th. So definitely a little bit of a break, so if I sound different, that's why. Just gotta deal with it for this little next part, but don't worry, after this it'll probably stay consistent. Hopefully. Back in the market, rubble covered the whole area. Katie kicked a wooden board away, looking around. A few Sierradactyls ganged up on a Geosternbergia. She got out of the rubble and saw a DPW officer's hand sticking out. She covered her mouth just before hearing chewing. She barely peeked around the fallen pillar and saw a Utah raptor, eating a freshly killed Othanilia. She quietly squatted down and pulled out her tranq rifle, aiming it right at the Utah raptor's chest. When she looked in the scope, she gasped, looking back up, seeing it now looking right at her. She nervously chuckled, trying to shrug off the Utah raptor's judgmental glance. She knew Bruton was just behind her, but she cocked the rifle. The Utah raptor took a step closer, slowly opening its blood-soaked maw. She squeezed her eyes shut and pulled the trigger. When a screech filled the air, Katie opened her eyes, seeing the Utah raptor leaping up. Katie rolled to the side, firing another 2 darts into the Utah raptor as it slammed into the guardrail. It snapped at Katie, but then drunkenly tried to snap again before falling to the floor, sedated. Katie breathed a sigh of relief, sprawling across the floor. She looked at the subway entrance, seeing the guys rush in. "About time," she smirked, being helped up by Fritz. Fritz looked over, seeing the sedated Utah raptor. "You faced down a Utah raptor and managed to sedate it? That's awesome! You're awesome!" Fritz chuckled, hugging Katie. She looked on, wide-eyed, but unwilling to pull away. Thanks, but, we got a mission to finish," Katie urged. Fritz cleared his throat, letting Katie go. She smirked and smoothed out his jacket and adjusting his Canadian flag pin. Always liked Canada. "Anyway, let's go avenge your daughter," Katie smirked. Fritz nodded and the 5 ran out. Wait, wasn't Bruton just here?" Gabriel asked. The 5 looked around, suspicious. "Yeah, wait, where is he?" Jeremy asked. The 5 ran outside to check. Wilson was getting tired of limping across the market, panting. The 5 ran out to witness Hectilius thrashing around, trying to break free from Red's grip on his neck. Suddenly, the irritator headbutted Red away, taking his place and grabbing Hectilius' lower jaw and pulling. As Hectilius roared, his head now sideways, the irritator thrashed, pressing down and snapping Hectilius' neck. Red and Fritz looked on wide-eyed, watching Hectilius get thrown to the floor. Everyone soon took cover as a DPW helicopter flew over the open grounds. A man aboard firing darts at Red, Bruton, and the irritator. Bruton roared, finally clearing the 2.5 meter height limit and examining the new area. Bruton's gaze fell upon Hectilius' carcass, and then the irritator atop it. "Duck and cover!" Fritz yelled as Bruton charged, knocking the irritator off. Bruton let out a grumbling roar as the irritator got up and retreated, fleeing into the patch of rainforest. Bruton and Red had a minor standoff before the DPW chopper finally brought the 2 down. "Is that your guys's?" Fritz asked, looking up to Katie. "No, it's a seized asset. We need to get the hell out of here," Katie warned, noticing the scraped tail call sign. The 4 nodded, and all of them ran off for a moment. As the 5 sat behind the building, hearing the chopper's blades slow, Fritz popped out a water bottle filled with a substance and began sipping it. "The hell is that?" Wilson asked, clutching his leg. "Maple tea," Fritz explained. "Where'd you get it?" Wilson asked. "I've had it, Will," Fritz explained. "Who just carries around maple tea while busting a black market?" Wilson asked, confused. Me? Fritz suggested. "You're weird," Wilson dismissed. "No, I'm Canadian." "Both of you shut up," Jeremy whispered. Fritz and Katie peeked around the corner, seeing the pilot get out of the chopper. Daniel Thorne. "Him? How'd he get your chopper?" Fritz muttered, still whispering. The group watched Daniel as he pulled out his radio. "Yeah, there were 4. 1 died and 1 escaped, but I got 2 right here," Daniel smirked, kicking Red's ribs. "Where are those Sierradactyls?" Wilson asked, trying to take Gabriel's attention off the cruel kick. Red groaned, still sleeping, but visibly hurt. "Don't worry, they're intact. Bring 2 on their way." "Ah, shit. I gotta go. Yeah, Basilton's here." Daniel hung up before turning his attention to George, Howard, and Ed. These it? George asked. Yeah, but I never thought you'd get Howard King and Ed Regas to come on your mission. Daniel chuckled. These two are the numbest minds I've ever had to work with. Daniel smirked. Don't care. Take them to Cascadia as agreed, and you get paid, George explained. There's a change of plans. Daniel smiled. George remained unmoved. We're still taking these assets to Cascadia, but we're also going to need some DNA from some specimens there, so we'll take the assets there as a pit stop. Whatever, we'll be there. Oh, and Thorn? George took a few steps closer, grabbing Daniel by the throat. If you're not there, I will personally make sure you will not see the future, George grumbled. For the glory of BioSyn, Bastleton, of course, Daniel mockingly bowed. He turned around to see two loading helicopters in the distance. In 10 hours, your assets will be waiting for you in the temperate rainforests of Cascadia. Daniel nodded, smirking. Cascadia? What about it? Wilson asked, being the furthest from the corner. They're taking Red and Bruton there. They're going to take DNA from native specimens, then they'll ship them to BioSyn Valley, Fritz informed. If they make it to BioSyn, it's over for avenging Harley, Katie explained, putting her hand on Fritz's shoulder. He smiled and held her hand. Then we make sure they don't get to BioSyn, Jeremy intervened. We intercept the transport in Cascadia, kill Bruton before they can take him to BioSyn, Fritz whispered. Genius, he reinforced. You came up with the plan, Jeremy deflected, lightly punching Fritz's shoulder. Shh, they're still talking, Gabriel informed. But listen, we're releasing the assets into the wild. That's where we pull out. You guys can handle it from there, Daniel added. That wasn't part of the deal, Howard chimed in. It is now, Daniel explained, firm. Anyways, that's a wrap. They're here, Daniel informed, pointing up. George followed the line of sight to see the transport helicopters above them. Fine. Run off. We'll handle it, George sighed. I'll grab my elephant gun, Ed informed, walking off. Howard and George followed. One of the helicopters lowered fastening straps while the other landed. Daniel quickly fastened Bruton to the still airborne helicopter before getting to the second helicopter. To Cascadia, I assume? The pilot asked. Not anymore. Bag the Rajosaurus with the net. We're taking Rajosaurus and Allosaurus. We're going to Wyoming, not Cascadia, Daniel explained. As the first helicopter took off north, the second one took to the skies, capturing the waking red with the net, and lifting him up. The two Sierradactyls flew out of the market, with one swallowing a DPW officer's arm. They heard Red's roars and flew alongside of him, traveling alongside him for the whole trip. Down on the ground, Fritz and the others watched. Gather the equipment. Anything the DPW has that could lure Bruton out, Katie? Fritz asked. Yeah, DPW just bagged a few herbivores near Canada, Katie smirked. Well, let's go to Canada, Fritz chuckled. Oh, Canada. So yeah, that's what I got for now. Sorry this episode took so long to make. It was a mix of a couple of personal issues, the sheer ambition of the new style of these videos, with, as you can see, the whole animation with, not animation per se, but the whole animated style. And don't worry, this little avatar that I have is temporary. I'm getting like an updated version that'll actually hopefully move around and look like it's actually talking, look like it's me. Additionally, this is probably going to be the longest video I'll ever make on Breaking Point. I didn't want it to be this long. I was originally going to break this into 2 different parts, but I said fuck it, and I just went for it the whole video. But yeah, so thank you everybody for watching. Hope you can, maybe maybe subscribe, help me out a little bit. And yeah, see you later. Aval out.